Summer of the Mariposas by Guadalupe Garcia McCall, read by Melinda Garcia. Chapter 12. La muerte. Jugando con la muerte, nadie tiene suerte. The death. When playing with death, nobody has any luck. It was dark in the cave. I tried moving, but my arms were aching. Then I realized my hands were securely tied behind my back as I lay on the dirt floor in a corner of the cave. Juanita was still passed out beside me. Looking around, I saw that all of us were in the same predicament. Every one of my sisters was tied up on the floor beside me. All around us, on the dirt, lying sideways over jutted rocks and tangled in the dusty threads of the telarañas, the webs of hundreds of black widow spiders, lay the corpse of our beloved friends, the snout-nosed butterflies. Their delicate winged bodies, prone and limp, were snarled in the girls' hair, attached to their clothes, even stuck to their bare arms and legs like dried pressed flowers. No longer disguised as a domesticated donkey, the Nagual, dressed in a soiled black robe, was standing over a huge bubbling cauldron. His long white hair hung from his face in a stringy, disheveled mess along the sides of his lean, angular face. He moved slowly and hunched over the cauldron like he was 100 years old. I watched him without making a sound as he chanted something vile and wicked, something that made my heart flinch in my chest. Well, hello, welcome back, preciosa, the Nagual said, showing his green, gray teeth as he grinned at me. I see you're ready. I rocked myself into a sitting position. My head was spinning from the effort, but I managed to sit up on my knees and face him. His eyes were two small, dark slits that glittered with amusement as he watched me struggle. His skin was so sallow and dry, he looked like an old rattlesnake. I half expected him to lick his lips with a forked tongue. Ready for what? I asked. This? The final stop on your journey, he said, stirring the contents of his cauldron so furiously that it spun like a whirlpool. The fuming concoction sent swirls of steam up to the cave ceiling, where bats flapped their wings, clinging upside down from their claws, and pit vipers uncoiled themselves from thick iron hooks. And what is that? I asked, as I tried in vain to loosen the ropes at my wrists. This is my masterpiece, said the Nagual. My own personal recipe, perfected over the last 4 centuries. A potion so strong, so powerful, you won't feel a thing as you perish. Once I put you inside and close the lid, you'll cook almost instantly. Then you can take your place in my favorite collection, the lovely bones of 1,000 children, sacrificed with Cecilia's blessing. Your death will release me from this curse. No longer will I have to dwell in a cave. No longer will I have to wander the earth in shape of a beast. With you, las 5 hermanitas, las 5 estrellitas, as my sacrifice, I will become more powerful than the Cretan Huitzilopochtli ever was. As he said those final words, talking about someone with an ancient sounding name, an Aztec deity, perhaps, the Nagual reached up to caress the collection of bones, both long and short, thick and thin, hanging from the wall behind him. Horrified, I wondered why I hadn't noticed them before. Their shapes and sizes made it impossible to mistake them for anything else. They were obviously human remains. His fingernails tickled their dry ivory exteriors, making the bones cling against each other with a hollow sound that echoed through the cave. It was the sound of death looming over me and my sisters, who were still unconscious on the ground beside me. I tried rousing them by leaning into them and whispering, Delia, wake up, girls. But they were out cold, so I closed my eyes and prayed. And as I prayed, I thought about Mama sitting outside, looking up at that full moon, wondering where we were. I thought about Papa sitting somewhere oblivious to our misfortune. I thought about Teresita and her husband, who warned us about the Nagual and tried to tell us how to get away. Why didn't we pay more attention? What was it she had said? Sing the song of the rain, the song of the cave, or was it the song of the butterflies? I tried to remember if Mama used to sing to us in our youth, but it was no use. Nothing came to me now. If only I could remember, everything would be all right. I shut my eyes tightly and concentrated. The song of the cave, the song of the birds, the song of the rain. My inner voice repeated Teresita's instructions again and again, but nothing made any sense. My mind was empty of songs. I couldn't even remember if Papa, who was a músico, had ever put us to bed with a lullaby. It must be a spell, I told myself. The Nagual must have wiped my mind clean when we first met him. I watched the Warlock move about the opposite side of the spacious rectangular cave. He ignored us as he inspected jars filled with dark, disgusting liquids and dirty sprigs of herbs on the shelves behind the cauldron, deciding what else to throw in the concoction simmering within. And all the while, I wrestled with the tight ropes at my hands, working them loose, slowly, carefully, until I was able to free my right hand. I was about to peel the loosened ropes off my left hand when I felt the warlock's grip on my shoulder. It was disarming how he disappeared from the corner of the cave only to reappear directly in front of me in the beat of a second. Oh, no, you don't, the Nagual said, using my elbows as leverage to lift me from the ground. My head spun like a carnival ride, but I twisted myself out of his grip and pushed him away. He grabbed at my free hand, but I turned around and kicked him in the stomach with such force that he fell to the ground. He lay on his side, entangled in his own robes, struggling to get up. I spun La Llorona's ear pendant with a dramatic flick of my hand. Aztec Queen Tonachin, Holy Mother of all mankind, lend me your magical assistance. No! The Nagual screamed, reaching for me. For a moment, I thought he might be casting another spell, but no power stopped me, so I called to Tonachin. Sing to me, Mother Queen, sing me the song of the cave, I chanted as the ear pendant quivered against my cheek. At my words, the earring began to hum as it spun. The humming became louder and more rhythmic. I watched the Nagual fascinated by his inability to move. He lay on the ground, helplessly paralyzed by the musical notes emanating from the pendant. Juanita, Delia, Delia, I called to my sisters, who were still lying prone on the ground around me. Wake up, girls! Wake up and listen! Suddenly, from within the fogginess of my mind, something resonated. A fragment of a chord, a familiar tune came to the front in form of a tiny sequence of notes. Girls, girls, wake up! I begged ecstatically. Wake up and sing our tune. The hum grew louder, and I joined in to sing. Que llueva, la Virgen de la Cueva, los pajaritos cantan, las nubes se levantan. As I sang the ancient tune quietly to myself, I realized it was the refrain Mama had sung to us to soothe our nerves on dark, rainy nights when we were very young. The rest of the song came to me, and I sang it, quietly, almost whispering it. I heard my sisters stir beside me, muttering as they woke up, and I knew it was working. Que llueva, el conto está en la cueva, los pajaritos cantan, las nubes se levantan. Louder and louder I sang. And when my sisters shook the fogginess from their own minds, they sat up and joined me in the chorus in Mama's lullaby. Que sí, que no, que caiga un chaparrón. Que sí, que no, que caiga un chaparrón. Stop! What are you doing? Stop it! Stop singing! The Nagual was screaming. He sat up and began to retreat, crawling on hands and knees to the far end of the cave to get away from us. And so we kept singing, louder, more forcefully we sang. And when I loosened the ropes from my sister's hands, we all stood in the center of the cave, joined hands, and sang louder and with more delight than any group of young girls ever sang before. Que llueva, las serpientes están en la cueva, los pajaritos cantan, las nubes se levantan, que sí, que no, que caiga un chaparrón, que sí, que no, que caiga un chaparrón. All around us, the desiccated corpses of the butterflies glittered and shone. Their tiny bodies quivered in the dust. Their wings fluttered and wavered as they trembled back to life right before our very eyes. Then a celestial light illuminated the door of our cave. Its radiance entered the room and pooled before the wily Nagual, who was cringing in the farthest corner of the cave. As if newly emerged from their chrysalis, the butterflies gathered their strength and began to fly. They flittered up into the air, dancing around the light, thousands and thousands of them fluttering together, dancing to our song. There were so many of them joining in the dance that soon they moved as one. Their bodies became a collective, a tapestry of wing and wind that fluttered with life, transforming into the figure of a young woman with dark hair and dark eyes. She was dressed in a shimmering tunic of gold and green jade. She looked like an Aztec goddess, but her face was that of a Mexican girl, the face of our many friends and cousins, a teenager like us. Who are you? Delia asked, dropping Velia and Pita's hands and stepping forth to take a better look at the apparition. What are you? Velia didn't move, but she let go of my hand too. Juanita fell to her knees and bowed her head in recognition. La Virgen de la Cueva, she whispered as she pulled on the hems of our shirts, trying to make us follow suit. Donachin, Madre Santa, forgive me, the Nagual begged as he cowered away from the radiance of the goddess. I did not know they were under your protection. How could you not? The youthful goddess asked in her childlike voice. Cinco estrellitas? 5 stars? 5 little sisters traveling through my domain in the sky. A warning for all to see, to let them pass unharmed. You are not dumb. You are not blind. Oh, but I am, the Nagual muttered, his lips quivering. I wasn't going to harm them. I promise I wasn't. Then what spews from your cauldron? The youthful goddess questioned. A stew? Or maybe it's a special offering for us. Stir it, man, before it sticks to the pot. It is of no consequence, your holy, the Nagual began. Stir it, I say, the goddess ordered. Her command was emphasized by the roar of thunder somewhere out in the distant sky. Stir it before I take my leave. I want to make sure you do your job as well as I do mine. No, please, the Nagual begged, inching along the wall. He reluctantly made his way toward the cauldron. Suddenly, as if in slow motion, he turned sideways and made a dash for the mouth of the cave. In his great haste, he tripped on the hem of his robe and ran right into the cauldron he had been boiling for us. Unable to stop, a victim of his own momentum, he fell into the roiling mess. The liquid in the giant kettle gurgled and splattered as it ate away at his flesh, and he screamed in what must have been excruciating agony. Instinctively, I reached over to block Bita's sight with my hands, but she pushed me away and stood staring at the gore before us, without so much as a single tear in her eyes. You don't have to do that, she said. I'm not a baby. Besides, I'm glad he's dead. Within seconds, a foul stench thickened and permeated the cave. The rest of my sisters and I ran for the mouth of the Nagual's cavernous dwelling. The Great Mother had saved us, and we escaped without looking back. We ran like venadas, frightened deer, fleeing all the way down the hill toward the safety of foreign woods and eerie dirt paths. Juanita and I brought up the rear, making sure our hermanitas escaped ahead of us. I looked back, wondering if I should have thanked the goddess before we ran. What do we do now? Velia asked,
when we finally stopped at the base of the hill to catch our breath and slow our galloping heartbeats. I don't know, I said. Do you have that flashlight, Juanita?
I want to look at the map.
Yeah, Juanita said, pressing a hand to her side. It's in my bag. What's the matter? I asked.
Nothing. I just ran too fast. I'll be all right in a minute. Juanita got the words out between labored breaths, and I knew what she was talking about. I too had a nasty stitch pinching at my side.
I looked around for some kind of landmark. The best thing to do is keep moving. We'd been passed out so long in the cave that night had fallen, but the woods were thick, and the full moon was somewhat obstructed. I could barely see my hand in front of my eyes.
I think I'm done with adventures. From now on, I'm staying as far away from Mexico as possible, Delia declared. Mama's rain song came back into my head, and without knowing why, I started to hum it as I pulled the map that Esita's husband had given us from inside my pocket. Vámonos, I told the girls. Let's sing the song of the birds and the rain and stay away from the dark places on this map. With any luck, we'll get to Abuelita's house before dawn.